This is Inside the Locker Room, where football isn't just a game, it's a war zone. Every take, unfiltered. Every prediction, ruthless. From Sunday battles to primetime legends. We break down the matchups, the mind games, and the moments that define champions. Fantasy, film, trash talk, all inside the locker room. So if you came for smoke, you're in the fire now.
We are back with another episode of Inside the Locker Room. Today we have another special guest, and as Inside the Locker Room, we are very promoter of mental health awareness. We see it on all of our platforms, and May is just around the corner. And today we have a mental health guest with us, Mr. Poetic, joining us on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
We're doing well, and thank you for coming out and reaching out. I noticed that you have seen our work and that you want to come on our show and speak about your story, and that just helps us get the message out, and that's our main goal.
That sounds good to me.
But just like I said before off the stream, that I was gonna let you just explain who you are to our audience and everything before we just interviewed you.
Cool. My name's Ethan Poetic. I'm from coastal Pennsylvania, same place as Rick Hamilton, and my second cousin, Hubby Marshall, who was the first person to make it out of coastal to the NBA. I understand times were different back then. I am a keynote speaker, self-published author, 2-time college graduate, certified as a mediator, restorative justice and circles facilitator, and of course, a mental health first aider. My website is ethanspeaks.com. My book is called The Inspirational Story of Ethan A. Poetic, Chronicles of Adversities, Education, Sports, Relationship, and Resiliency. As a hardcover, softcover, ebook, audiobook, has made impact in many people's lives in all walks of life.
Dude, you're muted.
Oh, Ben, would you want to start the interview off?
Yeah, no, I was purely transpired and inspired by your story. And I saw that one of the main points that you made in one of your interviews is that you turn adversity into sort of something to drive through. And I honestly related to that a lot as well, because before I started doing this and before I started my journalism career, I had gotten into a car accident myself, and I didn't know what to do with myself after that, but I kind of used that adversity to push myself forward. So I wanted to ask you first, Ethan, what is the biggest, I guess, piece of advice you can give people going through adversity besides, using that adversity to sort of propel themselves forward? I guess, what would you tell those people and tell, especially, I think athletes too, who are going through hardships? Because I think a lot of people in the sports world, coaches, players, they could use a lot of our help.
First off, by saying I'm a former student athlete. I used to play football, basketball, track, wrestling. As a team sport. The coaches helped fill in the void in my life with not having a positive father inside my household and relationships. It made a big difference. I was able to transition to, graduating college, even though I didn't play varsity sports my 10th, 11th, and 12th grade year due to unfortunate circumstances and choices that were above my pay grade. But I still graduated. I still persevered. And you have to want to do it, starting with creating a vision board. Be surrounded by the right people that believe in you, want to pour into you. You have to be willing to do the work and do the process, because I had to do the work because I overcame a near-death experience. Then graduated college twice. When I did graduate college officially from Mills University, then eventually my mentor told the person who was in charge of the comm theater, she was shocked. She had no idea. It got to the point where she gave me a Overcoming Adversity Award. Then the day I had my ceremony, I was featured on WJL, and I was featured on the front page of the Lancaster newspaper, and it really got out there for the kids that looked up to me. Because when you work in sports, parents, guardians want to know who's working with their student athlete. And when parents found out, word spread fast. They showed their kids, and I show up to work, kids are grabbing me by the leg, calling me their new dad. You name it, you can say it however you want. I understand I can relate to the kids. Some of them missing their biological father, whether it be to incarceration, not being in present, maybe being pushed away by, certain moms. But unfortunately, that's a big hole in a person's heart to live with. Another person that's not present, that's a part of them in a DNA-wise present. But ultimately, you have to be willing to understand that this earth is at least 2,000 years old. Therefore, most of the adversities we're facing have already been overcame. There's stories and books on them, like in movies. Let's say, for example, the Malcolm X story. He lost his dad and still persevered. You can look at the Blind Side movie. Michael Orr overcoming poverty. It wasn't until he connected with a family that really believed in him and invested into him. You can look at the movie The Pursuit of Happiness. Kind of relates to my book in some ways. It was about relationships with people that was willing to pour into him and believe into him. Then you can also look at the movie Precious, a Tyler Perry movie. A person who was stuck in a rabbit hole, but once she left the environment that wasn't conducive or healthy for her to grow and be nurturing, that's when she really blossomed. But I say all I have to say is that you really have to take an inventory of where you're at in life. Home life, heart life, mental, wounds, scars, trauma, life challenges. Because we're all facing something. The question becomes, what do you want to do to defeat it and outlast it?
Yeah, thank you for that. I was gonna say too, certainly it's important to, bet on yourself and also get the help that you need from others, and that it's okay to, sort of lean on other people and get the help you need. So yeah, thank you for that, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Adam?
Yeah. So I was curious, through your work, I'm sure you've worked with a lot of inspirational cases. Is there a certain moment or encounter through your work that has stood out to you or just really resounded with you?
Maybe more specific.
Just through anyone that you've met that has like profoundly impacted you. I mean, I guess if there isn't anything specific, you could say, I mean, maybe all of them, but if there's just something specific that's really resounded with you.
Well, first I got to start with the unsung heroes, like the people in the medical field, from the nurses. They're underrated, sometimes underpaid.
Definitely.
Doctors, receptionists, therapists, whether it be occupational, speech, physical, you name it. And the people who, humble me in certain ways that, push me. Then I also have to thank, people coming into my life to pray for me. Having Bible study at the hospital, inside my room at the rehab, inside the living room where I used to live at. It was a dark time because there was a lot of uncertainty that I wasn't sure if I was ever going to eat again. Being on a feeding tube and being at my lowest in weight and everything else. Then I also have to say, Jordan Steffi and the Atala Prep Foundation made a big impact in my life, with helped me further my education and believed in me, because I used to be on an IEP plan due to a stepdad making a bad choice that involved law enforcement. I talk about this in my new book, The Inspirational Story of Ethan Poetic, Part 2, Chronicles of Adversity, Education, Sports, Relationships, and Resiliency, where I found out the real reason why I was facing a barrier is because school districts have an agenda. They want to find broken homes so they could treat a student like a golden goose so they can get federal and state funding for their budget. That's how I was treated for something that wasn't even my fault for what he did. And I'm not just speaking on experience. I got documents to back me up. They got judges' statements, doctor statements. And of course, since we're on your show, I got to keep it 100. Statements what my mom said. And it took me over 30 years to find out the truth. That's a long time for me to live with something that I didn't know I was battling with being the class clown, looking for free attention and validation for our ego boosts. Then I also gave a sneak peek of here I am in the learn support classroom, but also in the IEP meeting. Everyone else knows what really happened except me. And this is the courage part I did. I called out the man responsible for the situation. I sent him a letter that was notarized and certified. And he wasn't man enough to talk to me in person about it. But he left me a voicemail and he's scared about the truth coming out. But I say all that to say is that sometimes you have to confront things that you need to confront. And that's what I did. Who would imagine that little boy would find the real documents to find his truth? And when I found out the truth, it set me free in ways that explain why I was doing certain behaviors. I say all I have to say is that you have to find your own truth where you're going to identify certain areas in your life that are showing up, whether it's with drugs, alcoholism, or certain addictions. But moving forward, there's a lot of people that were unsung heroes. A guy who was my next door neighbor who ended up becoming my father figure. We're still cool like this to this present day. We got each other's back. And many other people. Life is not easy for me because I became a walking living miracle. It's an everyday journey of understanding my purpose, understanding that life, I'll make it more specific. This year is my 15-year anniversary as a walking living miracle, which is a milestone. I had 2 celebrations, last Saturday in Lancaster, Monday of last week in Coatesville. I'm going to celebrate mines. I'm going to rejoice mines because at the end of the day, I come a long way and nothing's stopping me except myself. But that's only if I allow it to. Same thing in people's life. If you allow things to stop you, you hinder your growth. But when you're willing to face it, you don't have to face it alone. You can face it with other people that believe in you but has your best interests.
Great answer. Michael?
Absolutely. And first, Mr. Ethan, it's a pleasure to meet you. Deuce shared your Instagram profile, and let me just say I'm truly so proud of the work that you put into the community, from kids all the way to adults. Mental health is a real thing, and the thing that I can say about that is that we're all in this together. But sometimes my pastor used to always say this, that sometimes when God blesses you in your life, He doesn't send you something, He sends you someone, and that has touched base with me throughout my entire life. So on behalf of that, I want to say it's a pleasure to meet you, and I'm grateful for the connection that you put on the community.
Hey, thank you very much for this platform because it's going to impact someone's life. It's going to impact one generation at a time or even a community of people.
Absolutely. Mr. Ethan, there's this saying that has been stuck on my mind, and I wrote this down because I feel like this can relate to what this show is technically about. There's a saying that captures this perspective that we weren't meant to carry what God was meant to conquer. And I tell people that all the time. Whatever you're dealing with, sometimes you just have to, give it to God and let God uh, fight our battles. Because that's what a lot of people say. Sometimes it's best to not fight it on your own, and sometimes you just have to let God step in and take control. Um, do you believe in that true saying?
Yes, because I'll give you an example that happened maybe 2 or 3 years ago. When it comes to my anniversary as a Walking the Miracle, the waves of emotion was always showing up, and I just didn't understand it. I wasn't doing anything illegal or immoral. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't smoking. It wasn't until I got featured in the Southeast Times newspaper, 2 words stand out. After that interview got over and the paper got published and printed. Survivor's remorse. I didn't know I was dealing with that, but it made sense because my health condition at that time, 15 years ago, I wasn't able to attend the funeral and the reception to pay my respect. And when you survive something like I did, it becomes a situation where people are happy you survived, but people don't know the internal stuff going on.
Right.
When I found out what I was facing and needed to deal with, I addressed it right away. And I realized I can relate to other people that had to overcome survivor's remorse, those who lost a child, grandchild, a dear friend, loved one. Even our veterans deal with survivor's remorse all the time because not everyone comes back from those wars. Not everyone comes back from ambushes. And that's real life trauma right there that, you know, that sticks with a person. It's a matter how you cope with that energy of trauma, cope with the energy of a survivor's remorse. I know how to channel it and move forward. Things have gotten better, but this year was much tougher because the waves of emotion lasted for nearly 2 months. I never felt that tensity before. There's times I didn't feel like going to work. Times I want to have the blanket over my head and just like I'd rather sleep this off until the next day, but I just had to get up and go to work anyway because bills need to be paid. I'm expected to be there and gotta be present. But moving forward, there's a lot of things that we face that sometimes you think it's about us, but it's not always about us. It's like in my situation, sure, I overcame the near fatal car accident, but when I overcame it out last, it became bigger than me. My original plan was just to go off in the sunset, let me get this job in the after school program, let me go to college, get my driver's license, and be low key. But it just didn't happen that way. When parents found out about my story, by researching my name, this is before the notoriety and everything else. It just became a situation where they would show me the original, clips of the car accident. I'm like, this is not comfortable. This is not what I expected. But eventually, I had to learn that life has a way of pushing you outside your comfort zone, whether you like it or not. And that's what pushed me out to speaking about it, dealing with it, and facing it. Like, for example, when I wrote the book, I had to go back in time to look at the article, that television story, and my Facebook wall at that time. And man, I almost teared up. All the people commenting on it because they thought I was about to die. 99% chance of death versus 1% chance of life. That faith of a mustard seed in an emergency surgery, but also another breakthrough happened that made me uncomfortable to tell me my truth. I found out why I really didn't die of eternal bleeding. I was watching NCIS. Normally a person dies from a gunshot wound, but it didn't because some medical person or somebody poked holes inside the rib cages to stop the eternal bleeding. And then bam, that's when it hit me. Now I see why I got scar here and there on my rib cage. Somebody poke a hole in my rib cage to stop the internal bleeding.
That's crazy.
Yeah, now I see why, scars are battles, but scars tell the truth that I didn't know. And it took me finding out on a television show to find out that truth.
That's crazy. That's kind of what leading into my first question. I just wanted to ask you about that same to make sure that I was telling the truth and not just coming up what's on top of my head. But Mr. Ethan, this is called resilience and recovery. You talk about the 1% mindset. That's what I listed the title for in this question. You often speak about surviving a 99% chance of death. How did you manage the mental and emotional fall during your early recovery when the odds were so heavily against you?
I'll start by saying the odds were against me, as in higher rate than person filed for divorce, filling out the papers for dropping out of college or high school or anything else. But that 1% was still present. And at the time, I didn't understand everything because I was on all this medicine and all this extra stuff going on. But as I was writing my second book, and did this deep reflection on all this stuff, I realized I was already victorious. I was already a winner. I was already the undisputed champ. The problem was, in the beginning, was I didn't have that mindset because I was so broken, so heavily medicated, that if I shake your hand regularly, you'll feel the nerve endings. But if I shake your hand with an oven mitt, we're not going to feel it because that medicine, legally high, whatever, it basically, try not to cry, but I'll just say it like anyway, it suppressed all my body senses, taste, sight. I'm being sensitive to light. I can't feel how I feel. It's like I know something's wrong, but something just ain't clicking. And it's not like me to be this way. I was so numb to the touch, like, yo, what's going on? It was a big reset. The athletic ability, the poetry, the thinking, the writing, the speaking, and then to add to that being on a feeding tube. Yo, it was a dark time, and there was no cloud. It was just a feeling of uncertainty of, will I ever eat again? Will I be able to drink again? Will I be able to walk again? It was an unprecedented journey of where to be brighter days ahead. It just got to the point where if I were to go to sleep, I got to bring a towel to put it underneath my face because my mouth was drooling. And that's not like me. And then I had to be dependent on other people. Go to doctor's appointments, physical therapy. I couldn't go to the stores because my mouth would get so watery. I'm talking about the food stores. I remember the times of reading the Bible. I remember the times of this at-home care nurse coming by. And it was just like, I remember a couple of times I had to call the ambulance because I was so weak. It was humbling, but I knew I needed it. It wasn't like football where you got to keep going. It's more like something don't feel right in my body. And when I was able to make that phone call and then get put on the stretchers both times, it was humbling but needed because I was in a situation where I had to depend on people. And when I did, finally make a recovery, there was more things I had to overcome. And I had to keep it real with you. My parents weren't, how I say this, looking out for my best interest because they were doing things they weren't supposed to be doing. Long story short, it was a married couple that helped me get my driver's license, not my parents. It was a nonprofit organization that helped me further my education, not my parents. And I say all that say is that the odds were against me. I had this IEP plan that said nothing about me further my education. But I'll take you back to a time where I was a newborn baby, but both my grandmas believed in me had greatness. One had faith, one believed. But it turns out, when you're not in an environment that's conducive for you to thrive, you have barriers to face. And unfortunately, when adults don't take care of their own messes that involve the law, you don't break the cycle, that generational trauma gets passed down to kids, and it wasn't even their fault. And when I found out my truth, it set me free, but now I can set other people free about their truth that they need to face. But moving forward, that journey of recovery was something I always remember, and it taught me a lot about patience. It taught me a lot about patience is virtue. It taught me a lot about never giving up. It's like, I remember this one movie called, not The Blind Side, Fireproof, where the coach took his best player, put a blindfold on him, put one of his teammates on his back, and told him to do the bear crawl to the 50-yard line from the end zone to the 50-yard line. In the beginning, it was easy. Halfway there, something was starting to pick up. It got to the point where the guy was moaning and groaning like, I can't do it, but the coach kept pushing him and pushing him and pushing him to the point where he cried, took off the blindfold, and the coach told him, "You made it to the end zone."
Mm.
And that's how life is. You gotta keep going until you get into your end zone. You gotta keep going until you make your shot inside a basket or go past the net. Or we can go with golf, hit the ball inside the hole. Or we could talk tennis where you gotta serve it the right way. Or same thing with volleyball, spike it on the other side, and much more. Those are the sports analogies.
Hmm.
Because I'm going in deep. You can go with NASCAR. What do you want to do to cross that finish line? It doesn't matter what place you come in the game of life. What matters is that you succeed in your game of life on your pace. Some may go faster, some may go slower. Like my another story I could tell you is about the turtle versus the rabbit. That rabbit won because the rabbit didn't win because they overlooked things, while the turtle saw the finish line while going at his pace. And that's how life is. You have to focus on your lane, your journey, and understand you're in your own race, and you have to understand where's your finish line.
Agreed. Appreciate you, Miss Ethan.
You're welcome.
This.
Okay, so yeah, my next question is, keeping on the topics of, it's like student athletes. And you mentioned how you've speaking to student athletes before. How do how could that just be? How can mental health be taught more? In the locker rooms.
Well, when it comes to student athletes, I can relate to them because I used to be one of them. The difference is they're playing varsity sports. I'm not. But at the same time, I was able to be on the sideline as a chain gang member was part of my job for varsity football, running the school board for varsity basketball, did the measurements for varsity track, and still be part of the wrestling family at the same time. By me graduating from college twice, it made the coaches who coach me proud. They get to go home and tell their significant others that this is the kid I used to invest into. He may not play varsity sports, but he still crossed the finish line. And now they can use my story in the locker room, games, and much more. Because I could tell them that it's more to the sports about how you build relationships in the sport. Sure, you can get an NIL deal, but the bigger question is, what is your game plan as far as furthering your education, starting a business, join the military, go to work, take a leap year, or whatever you want to do, because one day you got to hang it up. Unfortunately for me, I had to hang up the sports in 9th grade, take care of my siblings, because my mom wasn't making healthy choices. But it still didn't stop me from further my education after death. And I say that because in life, it's not going to be easy. When I speak to the student athletes, it's more, I got to keep it 100 with them. Like, hey, life is now, you're not always going to get the right calls in life. Like how you get on the court, football field, soccer field, volleyball, bowling ball, you name it. Sometimes you got to play the game of life where those calls are not going to affect you. You don't put the game of life in someone else's hands. That may be against you. But ultimately, I've spoken to different places, and it was very good. Nowadays, is more kids coming up to me like last Monday. I was at a track meet. I had my poster, my 15-year anniversary. I was originally just planning on taking pictures with the coach who coached me for track. And when I got on the football field, which is after the track meet was over, other student athletes wanted to get pictures in with me. One parent encouraged their child to take a picture with me. It just became more of a, not sort of a paparazzi, just more of a vibe, positive energy and impact. Because it ended up becoming more than what I experienced. But because I'm more than the person who used to be a student athlete, I'm a person who has evolved. Because not too many student athletes can say graduated from college not once but twice. Student athlete I can mention is Samari Rolle, Florida State. He was a first-round projection at safety. Could have made millions of dollars. Instead, he chose to further his education overseas to become a doctor. So when he re-entered the draft, he got drafted in the later rounds because he knew those college degrees are going to last longer than his college career. Same thing with me, Sure, I didn't play varsity sports or college, even though I could have, but I didn't want to take a risk of injury. But what I was able to do was use my story, and I was able to get a sideline pass at Mills University football game. I've been invited to basketball games of prep schools. I've been invited to wrestling matches because of my influence, my aura. I've been invited to other places that I didn't anticipate. Like, for example, I live in Pennsylvania. I got recognized at the PA Complex State Capitol, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, with the Award of Excellence. I'm the first in my family ever to do that. I was also, I believe, last year recognized with the NCAA award from the Lancaster branch. First in my family ever received that since they became U.S. citizens. I also received a proclamation declaration from the Lancaster City Council members. Again, I'm the first in my family to receive that. I can name all those awards and everything, but I'm here to tell you that I didn't get there. There's people who helped pave the way for me. For example, those who are, how I say this correctly, those who fought for civil rights. Those who wanted, better for the future generations, even though they weren't going to see the results. Then I got to go back to my African ancestors who, unfortunately, were picking cotton and doing all types of stuff for, on a slave plantation, paving the way for those on the civil rights. So everything comes in full circle. Because I act like I know where I came from because I researched my history. I've been to the area where, things were not in the best interest of my African ancestors and much more. But I'm here to tell you that they paved the way for me, and I'm going to keep their memory alive. And I say it to say is that student athletes got to remember that you didn't just get here. There's people that paved the way for you. Like, for example, in the NFL, people were protesting for free agency because some people wanted to leave their team to play on a better team or keep their options open. The NBA wasn't always, what it is now, where it's dominated by African Americans. Back in the day, it used to be more European people. What break the mold was between Irvin Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. Lakers versus Celtics. Helped keep the NBA alive. Similar soccer, professional wrestling. I'm talking about the real wrestling, not the WWE wrestling. I can say that with figure skating. I can say that with bowling ball because there's people that paved the way for the athletes now. We got to remember our history so that we know where we're coming from and know where, times have changed during different generations. But moving forward, I enjoy my purpose in life because it helps me able to cope with stuff. It allows me to understand that I'm telling kids knowledge that I didn't know growing up.
Great response. Great response. And we always on Inside the Locker Room here. We try every month to promote mental health awareness for all sports. I know Ben. He is very, very, very advocate about men's mental health and women's mental health, just mental health in general. May is around the corner, so that's why I figured that it'd be a great idea, to get a mental health speaker on here and just take time to just take time from just a regular sports and promote mental health, because that's what's important. Mr. Poetic, thank you for taking time out of your day for coming on to our show. Me, Michael, Ben, and Adam, we all appreciate you, for
Yeah, thank you
coming
for
on,
your time,
Yeah.
man.
Thank you so much.
explaining your
Thank
story. It means a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate this platform, appreciate the opportunity because all of our mental health matters because mental health is wealth. And we have to face things that may feel uncomfortable due to waves of emotion or anything else. But you have to face it. There's people who face things that are, people who are deaf, blind, people who are not born with limbs, people who are born with, severe, diagnosis. And we have the privilege of being able to walk, talk, drive, feed ourselves. Some people are not able to do that. And sometimes we take those things for granted. It's not until we lose a certain person or a certain thing we saw the value. Now we coming back, wanting to circle the block and want that person back in our life when we should appreciate and cherish them. Same thing with our gifts, our awards, our accolades, our proud achievements. We have to appreciate them, hug them, hold it tight. I have a lot of awards in my room that are Michael frames. They mean very near dear to me. But I gotta tell you the truth. There's gonna come a day where I'm starting to tell people, appreciate me and cherish me while I'm still here on this earth because one day I'm not gonna be here. One day you're not gonna see the inspirational posts on social media as much when it's time for me to leave this earth. For all my awards and accolades and stuff and proud achievements, I can't take that with me. But what I can do is leave it behind for some people to look at as inspiration. Look at it as what I overcame because I had to overcome death and much more. Because the body keeps track of trauma. And I'm saying that because when I go through those waves of emotion, that's a trauma remembering something going on from a long time ago. And, I did not fold. I did not bend over backwards. And I certainly did not go running. I had to face it. And when I faced it, I had to look at the article for what it was, the car cut in half. Looking at the television, looking at the Facebook posts. Now that energy that was negative and dark has turned to positivity and light. And I share that with people as much as I can because you never know what somebody's going through. So other than that, my website is ethanspeaks.com. I'm available for speaking engagements, things that I value, panel discussions, mental health discussions. If you want to support me through my books, just contact me directly. ethanspeaks.com. My social media is Ethan Poetic. My username is Ethan Poetic23. My email is ethanv116@gmail.com. And of course, my cell phone number, since it's my business number, is 717-690-4445. Contact me. Let's make this arrangements. Let's impact people's life because at the end of the day, we got to make the most of our 24.
Absolutely.
Because we never know when our last day is going to be. I know this one guy who recently, going through it, losing his mom. And she was a teen parent when she had him.
Mm.
She was not only his mom, but eventually she became a grandmom, a great grandmom, an aunt, a great aunt, and much more. So I tell you again, value the people that's in your life that you see and come across. Send them a text. Because, pride can get in the way of, this person don't contact me. You can make the effort and do your part. And I say all to say is that we have to appreciate each other. Because one day, that person's not going to be there. That phone call or that text number you used to contact, it's not going to be good anymore. And, sometimes you do got to be the bigger person sometimes. Because life is what you make of it. And life's too short living on the wrong side of the equation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Thank you.
taking time out of your day to come join us. It helps us promote men's mental health. And, Mr. Poetic, you're always welcome back on the show. But, jumping into our next topic on sports, on the NFL side of things, Michael, I know you went last. We didn't get to talk about the Alvin Kamara and Cameron Jordan situation. So I was going to let us start off this podcast with you leading it.
Yeah, dudes. First and foremost, before I get into that, that's a huge thing that we just did right there. Because let me also say that because I'm kind of glad that we did this because one thing I did not know about the next month was Mental Health Awareness Month. I did not know that. But what I'm also glad about is that we actually had a mental health person, Mr. Ethan, come on here and do this. Like you said, dude, kind of, there's nothing wrong with talking about sports, but there's always time to take a break from that and talk about mental health stuff like that because, like Mr. Ethan just stated, mental health is real, and mental health can come at us at any point in life. But what we have to also remember is that there's nothing more greater or bigger than what God cannot handle. And as long as we know and remember that, despite of what we're going through, God can get us out of it. We just have to take the time and have faith in Him that, despite of how big or small or medium the circumstance is, as long as we trust in Him and we have faith in Him and we pray about it, that conquers a lot of what we're dealing with. So I'm actually glad that we did that. But to jump into this Alchemir and Cameron Jordan situation, while the situation feels shaky, guys, there are several logical reasons why, for Saints fans including, to stay calm about these two franchise icons. And here's the case for optimism. First thing is Cullen Moore's vision for a dynamic duo. Guys, I don't know if you know this, but new offensive coordinator or mine, I like to call him, Mr. Cullen Moore has been very vocal about wanting both Alvin Kamara and the newly signed Travis. And I don't know how to say his last name, but
A-Chain. He wants to go by A-Chain now.
Adrian. Okay. Mr. Travis Adrian Jr. in his backfield. Here's the strategy, guys. Instead of A-Train replacing Kamara, Mr. Moore envisions a lightning and lightning approach. That's why I put in parentheses a lightning and lightning approach. Where Alvin Kamara's elite receiving skills and are utilized more heavily, right? But taking the physical bruiser, as I'll call it, the toll of his body, right? But here's the intent. Here it is. Mr. Moore explicitly stated in late March that he plans to have both players available, suggesting that the team is working on a way to keep Mr. Kamara in the building rather than shipping him out. Because Mr. Al Kamara has stated numerous of times that if he ends up have to be going to another team, he'll rather retire because he has a very sense of loyalty in the city of New Orleans. Number two, here's the Cameron Jordan situation. Here's the history of team loyalty when it comes down to Cameron Jordan. Let me put it like that. Guys, despite of hitting free agency for the first time in his career, Mr. Jordan has spent 15 years in New Orleans and has repeatedly stated his desire to retire as a Saint. The performance is still high. Guys, he came off a 10.5 sack season at the age of 36. Mr. Jordan has proved he isn't just a legacy player, but he is still their best pass rusher. He is still our best pass rusher, in my opinion. Now, here's the mutual respect. While he is testing the market to see his value, the Saints front office, led by Mr. Mickey Loomis himself, is famous for finding creativity in ways to do right by their franchise legends. I can go down a list of many legends that he has kept in the building by doing the right thing. But most analysts believe that flirting with other teams is part of the standard negotiating process to land a fair final contract in New Orleans. Number three, the Loomis magic. That's why I like to call it the Loomis magic with salary cap. Saints fans have seen this movie before. We've seen this movie before, guys. But every offseason, the Saints are salary cap hell. That's why I put parentheses. That's right, I said it. We are salary cap hell. And rumors fly about cutting veterans. That is true. But that's also part of business. Sometimes you have to let go of veterans to save money. Or that might be just part of, how to stay in the budget, especially when it comes down to having the players that you want to have, but sometimes you can't keep the players that you want to keep. Because some of these players want high value money, and that just sometimes that's like in life. Sometimes you can't hold on to something that is killing you financially. But here's the proven track record, guys. Almost every year, the Saints manage to restructure deals and keep their core together. While Alvin Kamara has a high cap hit, a contract extension, rather than a cut, could actually lower his 2026 cap number, making it a win-win for both sides. Now, last thing. I'm a little long at this. I apologize if I'm taking long. I'm trying to wrap this up. I apologize if I'm boring y'all.
You're
But
all good, brother.
here's the leadership value, guys. Okay? The Saints are in transition phase. Like I said before, we're in rebuilding stage, so it's a lot of things that we're trying to work around to make sure that we don't hit this situation again. Losing both Kamara and Jordan at the same time will be a massive blow to the locker room culture. I honestly believe that. That's exactly why I put this down here because I don't know if you guys know, but Alvin Kamara and Cameron Jordan are the leaders in that locker room.
Yeah,
They
are the Saints culture.
Yes, and when you lose that culture, it's kind of hard. Like I said before, when we lost Demario Davis, it's kind of hard to take away that leadership that Demario Davis built. And I think that's the thing. I think that's part of the reason why not Cameron Jordan, excuse me, Demario Davis went back to the Jets because there's a sense of culture here. The Jets were home to Demario Davis. That's where it all started for him. Ben, I know you can agree with me on that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's best to go where it all started. And a part of me was kind of like, man, losing Demario Davis, the leader in that defense is hard, but sometimes, you kind of have to accept what it is. And when I saw this, when he went back to the Jets, I'm like, I'm happy for him. I'm happy for the Jets because Ben, you stated all the time that the one thing that the Jets lack at is having a good core of leadership. And you bring in Demario Davis, who is not just a big dog of physicality, but he's also a very encouraging mentor when it comes down to preparing for the game. If you see the huddles that he does, that reminds me of a Ray Lewis effect. And that's one thing I could say that I'm really proud of what the Jets did, bringing back an icon that can get the Jets franchise in the right direction. But here's the glue factor, y'all. The front office knows that even if their on-field stats dip slightly, their leadership is essential for young players like my guy Brian Brzee or the incoming draft class. Removing both pillars in one offseason would be a total rebuild. A total rebuild move that this current region hasn't shown an appetite for. So, like I said, even if we lose those guys, but I honestly think when it comes down to Mickey Loomis, and he might not be the best general manager, but when it comes down to business decisions, it's 50-50 with him. But I honestly feel like, guys, that I don't think a panic is really necessary because what we don't see isn't always the worst. And then one thing that I hate about the sports media is that they will take a situation and they will overthink it and make it seem like, oh, this isn't good, this isn't bad. But the one thing that I've learned over time is that just because a situation has happened doesn't mean it's always the end. You have to be patient with these things. That's the part of free agency. You have to be patient. Sometimes patience is key. And like I was telling another guy that, oh, he was panicking that, losing Cameron Jordan, losing Al Kamara is the end of the Saints rebuild. But what I told him, I was like, bro, you have to understand, you have to be patient with this. That's what we have to do. We have to be patient. Do I want Al Kamara and Cameron Jordan to go? No. But at the same time, I kind of have to accept it because it is what it is. But it's up to the front office. It's up to Mickey Loomis. It's up to Kellen Moore as a head coach to make sure that what we lost, we can get back. It'll just be a little different from what we had for years. And sometimes that's how it is in life. Sometimes, like Mr. Ethan just stated, we're not always going to be here for long. We're not going to be on a certain team for long. We're not going to be doing a lot of things in time. It's all up in God's plan. But what I'm trying to say here is that as Saints fans, we need to stay calm about this situation. That's what we have to do. But here's a summary of the stay calm phase. As far as Kamara goes, the scheme change under Kellen Moore might actually save his career by focusing on his versatility. As far as Cameron Jordan, he's still productive. Guys, he has 15 years of loyalty that usually results in a hometown deal. So honestly, as far as me go, I can't speak for all Saints fans, but as far as me, I'm not stressing about it. I'm not panicking about it. Because I honestly feel I have a slight bit of faith that the front office will make the right decision. And if we lose Cameron Jordan, if we lose Al Kamara, it is what it is. But we have to accept the fact that just because we lost those guys does not mean that our season is over with. But it's a next man up mentality for the defensive line, whoever is playing behind Cameron Jordan. And it's also next man up mentality for whoever is playing for Alvin Kamara's spot. Mr. Travis, for example. He's productive, but you have to put in the work. The highlights and all that, it's not going to change anything. It's not going to change anything with me. I'm not a highlight person. I want to see productive on the field. Game in and game out. That's what I want to see. But I honestly feel like the sports media is way overthinking this than what it should be. And I don't like the fact that they did that. That's why I don't really pay attention to the sports media. Because sometimes they can overshadow situations and make a big old controversy about it when that's not even what this is. So honestly, I say to all of you guys, instead of worrying about what the sports media say, have faith and understand. Trust your front office. Trust the Jets front office. Trust the Seattle Seahawks front office. Trust the Cowboys front office.
Oh, I do.
Sorry, I couldn't keep a straight face when you mentioned the Jets front office. But I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying, Michael.
We can't overthink this, guys. We can't. Despite of our team situations, we have to just understand that we can't control. If it was up to me, I would keep Alvin Kamara. Hey, I'll sign him to a 1-year deal, and then whatever happens after that happens. But I honestly don't feel like it's over for us. I don't honestly feel that the odds are against us, even if we lose Cameron Jordan, because I honestly believe we have enough talent behind Alvin Kamara and Jordan to continue what we're trying to do, and that's rebuild. That's the whole phase of this offseason. Rebuilding where we started. We went 6-11 last year. a lot of people were anticipating us to only win 2 or 3 games. The guy at Sports Note were calling me crazy when I said we're gonna win 5 or more games. Look how we came out. We came out 6-11, and a lot of people did not anticipate Tyler Shaw to be good as what he was. He was in the rookie of the year list, guys.
Yeah, I can personally
Sports-
apologize to Tyler Shuck for sure.
I think we all could, definitely.
But see,
Saints might have found their franchise guy.
but see, here's the thing: the sports media made Tyler Shaw seem like he wasn't good enough because of what happened at the NFL Combine. That's what I'm saying. You kind of have to wait on these things. You gotta have to wait on the player's productivity to come in. Timing is perfect. Patience is key. And when it came down to Tyler Shaw, I'm like, okay, I want to see what he can do. And he became a whole lot better than, like I said, a lot of people anticipated. And the only reason why people did not expect him to be good was because the NFL Combine video that was clipped all over sports media. But that's what I'm saying. Stop listening to the sports media and actually be patient on what is being productive to you. And I honestly feel like Tyler Shaw, despite his first year, I want to see what he can do in his second year. Will he be able to keep the same productivity that he did despite of the short amount of time that he played? I take every year, year by year. I don't say, oh, we found our franchise quarterback. Even though, yes, that might be true. But honestly, guys, I cannot sit here and say that completely. I have to wait on these things. I have to see how he does in his second year, third, fourth year. You have to be patient with these things. And honestly, I can say for me, I'm patient and I'm waiting. And I would not be surprised if Alvin Kamara and Cameron Jordan either sign or retire. Because I respect those guys and I'm patient enough to wait and see how all this will come. That's what I got to say about that. But to all Saints fans, stay calm. Stop listening to the sports media.
Great start to the point. Our NFL segment around the what you call it. We're getting closer to the NFL draft. In fact, me and Michael will be discussing the HBCU showcase on our next next show. So stay tuned to that. But what I do want to talk about next is, do any one of y'all have any mock drafts to talk about? Adam, Ben, that y'all would like to discuss?
Ben's got the most recent one. I could just kind of bounce off whatever he wants to talk about.
Yeah, so honestly, I didn't release 10.0 yet because my mock did not change from last week. So we're kind of in this dead space before the NFL draft, but luckily it is April, the month of the draft, of course. But yeah, I think players that are starting to grow on me a little bit more as time and time goes on. I'm seeing a lot of Omar Cooper Jr. towards the end of the first. I think we could totally see that. And yeah, just a great group of players that we keep digging in time and time again. Adam, are there any other players who are sort of climbing your board a little bit compared to last week?
I mean, not even climbing actually. If anything, it's here. Let me see if I can find my mock. There it is. If anything, it's where's Jeremiah Love gonna go? Because on my most recent mock, I had him going to the Titans. If he doesn't go to the Titans, it's like he could fall. I know I touched on it last show. It's just like I don't know where he's like the slide's gonna end. Like the Chiefs have Kenneth Walker Jr. already. The Bengals need defense like crazy, and they have Chase Brown. They're not gonna take him. The Dolphins have Achane. They're not gonna take him. The Cowboys would really surprise me if they took him, even though Javonte Williams isn't exactly young. So it's like the Rams. I keep coming back to the Rams because they're the wild card, because they could go lineman. They could take a third receiver and like Mekhi Lemon, or they could try to somehow. I mean, they don't need the running back. They definitely don't need it.
Yeah,
That's why
I like the duo of Corum and Kyrie Williams, but I see your point there.
It's so good already.
He's that good of a prospect that I think like a lot of teams, even if they doesn't necessarily need a running back, they're definitely gonna have him high on their board because he's one of the clear cut best players from this draft. But yeah, not continue.
Yeah, that's when I like see it as like a trade up scenario, because at a certain point, it's like if he's falling to 12, 13, if he falls past the Rams pick, it's like Ravens again. They don't need him with Derrick Henry, but boy, oh boy, Derrick Henry and Jeremiah Love, that would be insane. That would take like the knuckle, the Sonic
Yeah,
and
the league would
Knuckles.
not be ready
that
for
would
that one.
that would be even crazier than having the Sonic and Knuckles on the Lions. So it's like I don't know what to do with it. So it's like at a certain point I'm like, Seahawks, you guys, you can move up. Like we need a running back. So I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens with Jeremiah Love.
Yeah.
I see a lot of linemen going. There's a lot of linemen that I'm falling in love with. Yeah, and there's this safety class is really good, especially after the NFL saw what Nick Manwari did and he fell to the second round. I don't think the NFL is going to let many of these safety prospects go. I mean, we have Caleb Downs. He's for sure going top 10, probably top 5. But then Tiananmen like blew the doors off the combine. He looks like a perfect fit to take over for Harrison Smith for the Vikings. Or they could go with Emmanuel McNeil Warren, who just like it's not quite as fast of a player, but he does all those little things well. He's got a great coverage. Like he kind of seems just like a slower Nick Manwari when you kind of turn on the tape. But yeah, a lot of things that could still unfold, and I think we're going to see a ton of NFL draft trades this year.
That's very interesting that you mentioned trades also, because that just made me think about, potential suitors who want to trade out of their pick. Like, for instance, I think the New York Jets could certainly trade out of number
Definitely.
2. Say a team wants to trade up for Jeremiah Love and leapfrog, say, the Titans. That's like the most smoke we've heard, honestly, this whole offseason has been Jeremiah Love to the Titans to team up with Cam Ward. So honestly, I think that's a very likely scenario where we see a team trade up inside the top 5 for their running back of Jeremiah Love. But even another player that might be moved on draft night, probably more probable than anybody else, is also wide receiver AJ Brown. We're going to see where he may end up, or is it even possible that he stays in Philly? We'll see about that, but I think it's pretty likely that he gets dealt at some point in some time. And we know that Nick Sirianni loves to make his moves on the draft day with his general manager in crime. Yeah, but I think that's all we got for our mock draft or our NFL draft talk, if you will.
I still think Dallas, they need to for the Cowboys, I'm gonna say this. I think they get a linebacker. If they don't get one in the first round, they're gonna get one in the second and third rounds. But like Ben had on his mocks, and what I'm hearing is McCoy from Tennessee to Dallas. When Dallas came to the season last year thinking Bland could play, that specific spot, and like you can always say Eberflus, you can blame Eberflus, but particularly in the inside or in the slot, Bland particularly did not play well. He thrives on the outside. Dallas needs that, they need that slot cornerback that they can plug in. And, look, we drafted Siobhan Rebel last year. He was out half the season, but when he came in, he showed flashes. But he's still not that, I'm not going to say he's not that, but I think you got to give him some more time to fully get that, a full NFL season under his belt. But, the one thing I do want to see Dallas do take in the draft is defense. That needs to be the name of the game, defense. And if not defense, O-lineman. I think outside the skill positions, Dallas is pretty locked and loaded at that. I believe that Jerry will find a way to get a contract with George Pickens. But, JSN, his contract did just kind of reset the market. So, that's what Dallas does now. That's what Dallas has to worry about now. But, what I do want to jump into our next topic is some NBA news. We're just a couple weeks outside of the playoffs. I believe we're 2 weeks away. And right now, I'm going to say this shout out to Luka Doncic because I believe he's on a 14 game with like 30 plus. And the craziest part is I've been telling my friends to, if you're gonna bet on Luka right now because he has a hot hand. He's been going over at least 31 for like the last 14, 15 games, and I already know his streak's gonna continue to go. The Lakers, I think right now they're going to clinch the third. I'm not going to jinx it, but how they've been playing, and if they can close the season out well, I think they can realistically lock up that third and fourth seed. Luka has finally taken that star-studded role as I'm the number one scoring option. Reeves is that number 2. LeBron has cemented himself as okay. I'm the third option in this package, and he's been just playing his role. And then what we said at the beginning of the season, the Lakers bench had to be better. It can still be better, but they have most definitely been playing better. We've even seen, some of our G League players like Bronny come up in on the NBA level and start to make some plays, with I'm going to say with LeBron, for example.
So I saw him playing the third quarter the other day.
Yeah, so I've seen a pick and roll. I've seen an assist from LeBron, and I've seen Bronny on the pick and roll. So one thing you got to give shout out to the G League players, the South Bay Lakers. You got to give shout out to them too, but you also got to give shout out to what the Lakers are doing right now on the court, because this is probably one of the best Lakers teams we've seen. I'm gonna say since 2020, and many could debate since before that, but you don't want to jinx it until we see the results that we want. But Adam, I guess we're gonna start with you.
Okay, first of all, I'm glad that you threw some love Luka's way, because I'm just gonna go on a little bit of tangent about Luka and MVP real quick. Luka's doing things that only Michael Jordan has done, and mainstream media just they don't want to include him as a top candidate. They're like basically every time I'm watching SportsCenter or any mainstream media, they're all talking about like, okay, SGA or Wemby, because Wemby like publicly stated that he wants the MVP. SGA just basically just said, he came back the other day and said, I'll let my game do the talking. Luka hasn't even been asked about it. He hasn't said anything about it, but like what Luka's doing is absolutely insane. You mentioned the 30-game streak. I mean, he's scored 40 straight in like, I think like 4 or 5 games straight. Now he's coming off 42 yesterday. But let's see. Oh yeah, so I want to make the Luka defender point, because people always hate on his defense, and Luka, when he's the primary defender, he's been a great defender this year. Way better than he's ever been, and actually like above average when you compare him to others. And he's been absolutely carrying the Lakers on this hot streak. Like, you take Luka out of the game, they're not winning many of these games, especially against the top competition. They might be eking out a few of the wins against the worst competition. Yeah, Reeves, LeBron, and Sporting Cast, still a very good team. But Doncic is putting them on another level. I think they're a play-in team, maybe, without Luka Doncic. And now we're like talking about possibly the 3 seed, which is insane. So he's just as deserving as SGA or Wemby. Last night I said the 42, but he also had 5 rebounds and 12 assists, and he did not turn the ball over one time. So 12 assists to 0 turnovers while scoring 42 points. Like, that's kind of incomprehensible. It's insane, honestly. Also yesterday, little more love for him. He hit 15,000 career points, 3rd fastest in NBA history behind only LeBron and Kevin Durant. So some good company. I'll also make the argument that the Thunder are really good without SGA. They're blowing out some really good teams and winning a lot of games while SGA was injured recently. I don't think it takes too much away from him, but like you take Luka or Reeves out of the lineup and they're not winning many games at all. So that's, to me, what the MVP is. You got to have good stats, but it's how much you're raising your team up. You take Luka out of the lineup, Lakers suck. You take SGA out of the lineup, they're going to win quite a few games because their system is so good. They've got so many first-round players. It's just next man up, because they have so many players that get like 10, 20 minutes a game that could probably be in a starting 5 on another team. So in my eyes, I'd favor Luka in Wemby's case, honestly, above SGA. If Wemby wins it, I won't be mad at all. But SGA, I don't feel. I know he's putting up like 32 points and shooting like 55% from the field, which is also like one of the best guard seasons ever. So, but I just want Luka to be I just want him to be in the conversation. It should be really like a 3-horse race, and I think the vote should be pretty evenly divided, and anyone can win at that point. That's fine with me. But yeah, Luka, he needs to be talked about more.
I completely agree with that. Like, it's so like it takes away from him from a little bit, just because of how great those other players are. But you never want to have that shadowed just because of that. And I think that point you made about the actual MVP aspect of an MVP, like how much value you bring to your team specifically, individually, I think that's another great point to make as well. And with the rest of the Thunder cast as well, we've seen them win without some of their starters before, and some different combination of guys like Hartstein, Chet, and all the other guys on OKC's overpowered roster, as we all know. So yeah, I'm glad
and
you
you
brought
take
that up.
like Jalen Williams or J-Dub. He hasn't played most of the season, and then they have the other Jalen Williams that just comes J Will, and he looks so good. Like, that's another guy that I think could be a starter on a lot of NBA teams. Just a tiny bit more about the Lakers. A couple more shutouts. Luke Kennard is literally having the most efficient guard season in NBA history right now. He's shooting like 53% from 3, I think, almost 60% from 2, and like well over 90% from the line. Not in like a huge volume, but the way he's changed the Lakers spacing is exceptional. And he's honestly showed me so much in the rest of his game. Jake LaRavia continues to be a huge X factor. He's a constant menace on the defensive end. He hasn't showed as much scoring recently, but last night he was perfect 5 for 5 from the field, perfect 2 of 2 from behind the line, 14.7 rebounds with that gritty defense. That's more than I could ever ask from Jake LaRavia. I think he's going to have I like the way Alex Caruso does for the Thunder and even did for the Lakers in the 2020 run. The Lakers are going to make a deep run in the playoffs. Jake LaRavia is going to play out of his mind defensively. And I think he can. He's really shown me a lot this year. And yeah, when Reeves is in the lineup, I gotta throw some love to him also. Like, they've only lost a few games this year when he's in the lineup. I think they're 14-12 when Reeves is not in the lineup. So that combination of Reeves and Luka, you're not winning many games without them.
Yeah, and the one thing I want to say is speaking about the Thunder really quick before we jump into our next topic of college basketball with Will Wade and going to LSU with Michael. The one thing that I do want to talk about, it is going to be interesting to see how the Thunder are going to because I saw a post mentioning that with the expansion teams coming with the Seattle and the Vegas expansion teams coming, that the Thunder are going to not be able to protect everybody. So how the Thunder going to be able to reload and retool this team, because their team is built off of depth, and when they can't protect everybody, that is going to create some holes in that team. But you got to give some confidence and some credit to their owner and GM. But this will be a topic for probably next week's show. But the one thing I do want to talk about next is with Michael, Will Wade and LSU. Michael.
Yeah, I'm actually glad. I'm actually proud of LSU, first of all, for bringing Mr. Wade back. He was a huge inspiration and an uplifting spirit for the LSU men's basketball program back in his time in 2022, I believe, or it might have been later than that. But before I get into that, I wanted to say this right quick, guys. Despite of what I was saying before, I completely will say, as far as the draft goes, as far as the Saints go, I want to say that the way I see it, we could possibly end up going 2 or 3 ways. We could go the receiver route. We can go the edge rusher route, the linebacker route, or we might end up possibly uh, touching base on the defensive backs route. But honestly, in my opinion, I think as far as Miggy Lewis and Cullen Moore, from what I've seen, 9 out of 10, I believe we might end up going receiver first, uh, and receiver first or edge rusher first, because that seems to me the most necessary approach as far as the 8 pick goes. Um, I actually kind of glad that we signed Mr. Travis, because as far as Jeremiah Love go, I obviously believe he's going to be gone before the 8 pick. That's just my opinion. I know I stated that before we even signed uh, Mr. Travis, but it's actually a smart approach because, like I said, 9 out of 10, he's going to be gone before the 8 pick. So now it's just basically more of like touching base on the receiver route. Or if we don't go in the first round, we might end up going in the second round. And we might end up going edge rusher. I know guys like Mr. Baylor out of Texas Tech was one. And there were many other guys that was on the Saints radar as far as the draft goes. I mean, I had multiple mock drafts. I just did this off the top of my head, but in my first mock draft, the first one I did, I had to say grabbing Cornell Tate, but he might end up be gone before the 8 pick, right? So then you go to option B. You go get Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State.
Mm-hmm.
Or let's say he's gone, right? Then you have your third option. You can go Mr. David Bailey, like I said, out of Texas Tech. I don't know if you guys saw, but our defensive line coach, Mr. Bo Davis, who is an icon in defensive line work, was working with Mr. Bailey during, I guess you want to call it workouts, where he was working with him. Those two seem to have good communication. And then also Cardinal Tate, Mickey Loomis was talking with him one-on-one. It seemed like it was a good conversation there. And based off what I seen in the interview, it seemed like Cullen Moore is very excited to get him, and he wants to get him. But then if you, let's say all three of those options are gone, right? Then you have Ruben Bain Jr. out of Miami. He's a
Yep.
solid pick to get. So there are many options for us to go with. And then Mr. Major Dillon, the cornerback out of LSU, he's coming up in the topic about us getting him. We might end up, like I said, going to defensive background. But if you want to personally ask me, what my opinion would be, I honestly see I would like to get either Cornell Tate, Jordan Tyson, or David Bailey. Those are my
Mhm.
three top picks.
I think you're
Uh,
almost guaranteed to get one too. The most
yeah,
recent mock I did, I had Carnell Tate going 6th, so he would be off the board. But then David Bailey, I've like Ben and other people have had him as early as going 2 to the Jets. My most recent mock I had him falling to 8th, and I think that's an absolute steal. He might even be better than Trey Hendrickson once he's fully developed. I
right.
feel like he can just do a little bit more on the football field, as well as being that like sack artist too. So I think he'd be a great pick for the Saints right there. Jordan Tyson would be sitting there too.
Yeah,
You do have like the injury red flags being a little bit of a worry, so I just think David Bailey's gonna be like the safe pick. But if he's
yeah,
gone too, then I have no problem with Jordan Tyson. My most recent mock I just had him falling to 11, but some people think 11 to the Dolphins too early for Tyson because of his injury red flags. But I mean, you just turn on the tape. That dude's electric. His precision route running is just as good as Carnell Tate. And like those two guys, if they don't make an instant impact in the NFL, I'll be very, very surprised.
yeah, and I agree. Like I said, there are options here, and the main thing about the draft, especially with the first 10 picks, is that it's a 50-50 chance for every team. And I want to say that if we don't go receiver in the first round, I would be glad if we get one of the two defensive ends, the edge rushers that I just listed,
Hmm.
because
Yep.
it'll like I said, it'll reshape the defensive line room, and despite the Cameron Jordan situation, um, if we do select the edge rusher, like I said, it's not the end of the world. Like I said, with Cameron Jordan being 15 years, him being 36, Mickey Loomis might keep him, and he might not keep him due to his age and youth, and he probably want to reshape that defensive line. So I'm not against that. But like I said, I would not be surprised if we don't go receiver first round. But the second round, 9 out of 10, there's been a lot of talk about Tyler Shaw's teammate, the receiver out of Louisville. I can't think of his name at the top of my head, but 9 out of 10, we might end up getting him in the second round. So I'm just calling it that it could go either way, but I would not be surprised if we did not go receiver first round, or if we did go receiver first round. That's fair. I'm actually glad because that'll reshape our receiver room and give a little bit more talent behind Chris Olave.
Yeah. And Tyson would be like the perfect complement to Olave because he's a little bit bigger bodied, can
Yes,
make those contested catches. Then you can just let Olave just flourish on the outside, deep routes and all that. Be a perfect
absolutely,
player.
absolutely. But I'm gonna jump into this LSU thing. But yeah, guys, as far as Will Wade, he is officially back as the head coach of LSU men's basketball as of March of 2026. After being fired for cause in 2022, he was rehired on March 26, 2026, following a coaching transition that saw LSU fire Matt McMahon on after a 15-17 season. I honestly saw this coming as far as LSU firing Mr. Matt. Um, it just wasn't it. It wasn't there. It was time for a reboot in the LSU men's basketball program. A lot of people this year did not see LSU as a NCAA tournament threat because of the spotty struggles that they've had under Mr. Mack himself. So I honestly think, bringing Mr. Will Wade back and his basketball knowledge and what he did for LSU to begin with is actually a smart move. But guys, Mr. Wade returns after a successful rebuilding stint at Michigan State, leading them to their first NCAA tournament win in 2025, and a single season at North Carolina State. But here's the future for LSU basketball under Mr. Wade. Mr. Wade has singled an aggressive plan for an instant turnaround to make LSU a dominant SEC contender again. Here are some things that I want to list right quick. Massive financial backing. LSU has committed a significant resources to his second tenure, including a 7-year, $30 million contract. Reports indicate a player payroll budget combining revenue sharing and NIL of a 12 million to 15 million. Roster rebuild. Guys, Mr. Wade plans to utilize the transfer portal, which opens, for people that don't know, on April 7th, 2026, which is 6 days from now, to overhaul a roster that has already seen 4 players, including Dayton Thomas and Jalen Reed, enter the portal. He has stated he will have a heavy hand in a personal decision as both a head coach and a general manager. Now, coaching staff. Guys, he intends to have a shell recruiting staff in place by early April, prioritizing efficiency over a large staff size. Here's the last thing, unfinished business. During his introduction press conference, guys, for the people that don't know, on March 30th, 2026, Mr. Wade stated his goal is to hang a banner and win a national championship or become the first head coach fired from the same school twice. Now, here's the contract and leadership context. The path in his return, guys, has paid by shifts of LSU's administration. Specifically, the hiring of Mr. President Dr. Wade Rosie, I believe I said that correctly, and Senior Deputy Athletic Director Heath Squatchiner, I believe I said that correctly. If I did, I apologize. Both of whom worked with Mr. Wade during his successful tenure at McNeese State. So, guys, I will go down this because I had more, but for the second time, I'm not going to do that. But what I can tell you is I'm excited about the move, but I am patient on the future phase for LSU men's basketball program. It will be nice for LSU men's basketball program to get back on that dominant phase, just as Kim Mulkey and the Lady Tigers are. But I will also say that it's going to take time for that success to come back to LSU. It might happen in the first year, Deuce. I mean, I know you can agree with me on that because, for example, Fairview football team, I mean, this is not basketball. I mean, it's not basketball related, but in his first year, he led Fairview to a SWAC championship and a Celebration Bowl. So, what I'm trying to say here is that the only way the first season will go successful is if he attacks it the right way. What I mean by that is you can have a good coach, but it's how you recruit that's going to determine your season. And how Mr. Wade recruits coming back to LSU is going to be the question here. Now, will LSU men's basketball team be a winning asset in its first year? Maybe, maybe not. But I would not be surprised if they don't do it right away. Like I said, it takes time to build back the success of a team or a franchise or whatever. So honestly, I think bringing back Mr. Wade was a smart move by LSU because it's a bright future for the athletic department. Because you got Kim Mulkey, now you bring back Will Wade, and it's like, okay, now we're seeing something. And then not only that, if you think on the football side, you bring Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss. Now that also is the same way with that. Will Mr. Wade and Miss Kiffin's first season go well? Probably not. Because it takes time to build up a program in your own style, in your own way.
Yeah.
So rebuilding takes time, but sometimes it can happen quickly or it can happen slowly. But as far as Mr. Wade and Mr. Kiffin goes, I honestly think that as far as both sides, it's going to happen slowly. It might not be this year, but then at the same time, it might be this year. It just really determines. I can't really specifically say. But what I can tell you is that when you bring back a dominant head coach, sometimes their first season doesn't go the best. And sometimes it takes a second season to start their winning phase, then the third season, or it happens in the first season. It just really determines, just how skilled and athletic your roster is, and do you have all the assets to actually, become SEC contenders and NCAA tournament champion roster, and then with the coaching staff. So that's just what this is. But I'm actually proud of LSU and what they're trying to do. They're trying to continue the dominance that LSU has had over the years. But like I said, it's just a matter of how these coaches handle business.
Yeah, like I agree with you. It could take some time, like build up the culture again. That's kind of the big thing. But as far as how big of a school LSU is and how they attract, I mean, even transfer candidates. But like if they attack recruiting, and I know Lane Kiffin's a really good recruiter, I could see LSU football being really good right away, just because they're going to attract all those wide receiver prospects like they always do. I could see basketball taking a couple of years though, but you never know, because I mean, if all of the like headaches are in the rearview mirror and people want to go and play for Will Wade again, Will Wade, then you never know. They could be really good right away, just because they're such a big school that they could attract some top tier talent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the one thing that we always talk about, Michael, we always talk about on our HBCU platform, NIL money that these Power Four schools have. You got to think about it.
Exactly.
This is what Lane Kiffin has. He's coming from one powerhouse school in what you call it in
Ole
Ole
Miss.
Miss, and he's coming to LSU. And you could say the same thing about Will Wade. They're coming with money, which means they're going to come with NIL, which is going to be able to draw these prospects over. LSU can offer what some of these other schools just can't in general, and they got better facilities than almost everybody. Michael, we talk about this all the time. The facilities and what's going to attract players to come to your school.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what LSU has, and LSU can they made the one thing I like about like college football, like the SEC and stuff, is like you can have a bad team one year, but one off season of good recruiting and just good transfers that can turn the whole program around. And we see it all the time. We saw it with Texas, we've seen the Alabama, we just see it all the time. So that's just the one thing I personally like, about it. So I wouldn't, look, for basketball, I kind of see what you're saying, because basketball is smaller. It's smaller. It probably takes a little bit more to draw in recruits. And, SEC is not a powerhouse. It is a powerhouse, but not there. Is other basketball schools. There's other basketball schools out there for college basketball compared to college football. As the college football, the SEC is, it's the powerhouse, and everybody's going to want to go there, to get, people got different motives to want to go to these bigger schools. Exposure, playing time, everybody has different reasons, but you could say football, you have trust in Lane Kiffin that it can get done faster. Basketball, you still have trust in Will Wade, but like you were saying, it may take a couple more years.
Yeah, and they could get all the talent in the world, and it could take a little bit, because, to use our show name, like, you don't know what's going on inside the locker room. It could have the best talent in the world, but the locker room presence could not be amazing right away, and it could take a little bit for the players to buy into Lane Kiffin or Will Wade again. And then maybe they're great from there, or maybe they are really good right away, and maybe everyone just buys in.
Right, exactly. And here's the thing about the SEC conference that we all have to understand. That is one of the most very competitive, skilled, athletic conference in the entire college world. And it's not gonna take one season to be, a three loss or a one loss conference team. It's gonna take some time for that. But the only way it's gonna happen quickly or in that 1 year is if that Will Wade recruits the way he does, or like I said, handle business the way he's supposed to in reshaping this roster in just this one season. But like I said, with the SEC, it's gonna take more than one season to build back up a team, despite of whether you used to play there or whether you used to coach there. Times are different. And yes, even though Will Wade was successful back at his time at LSU, but we're talking about right now. You can't compare an old story to a new story. You can go back in history and talk about, oh yeah, he was successful. Let's bring him back. He's going to have the same success as he did, when he was back at LSU. Or he has a good coaching resume. Let's bring him here, he's going to be a dominant coach. Sometimes you can have a good resume and still have a bad coaching experience at a certain school. It's just handle business at the college level, how you recruit, how you coach. That is the thing here. And it's going to be challenging for Will Wade. I'm not saying he can't do it, but what I'm saying is I'm not going to jump the gun and be like, oh, LSU is going to be they're going to be the UConn of basketball. They're going to be the Duke of college basketball. No, no, no. You can't compare that. You have to be patient with these things. And that's what I'm saying. I'm patient with the matter, but I would not be surprised if guys like Lane Kiffin or Will Wade can, by the snap of their finger, they can turn LSU season around real quick. That
Yeah.
I mean, that's possible, but it's 50-50. It's a matter of how your season goes. Matter of fact, let me say this. Do I think Lane Kiffin is going to beat Ole Miss in his first season? Probably not. It's going to take time to build a roster to beat the school that you were literally at. So it's just a matter of how your season goes, how you coach it, how you teach it, how your players react, how your players perform. That's where it's going to come down as far as LSU's future in basketball, Lane Kiffin in football. So we have to be patient with this. But I am excited for Will Wade coming back. I'm fascinated by his story and his resume, but I'm not going to jump the gun despite of how good he was. Because like I said, you can't compare an old story to a new story.
Mm-hmm.
You have
Completely
to,
new team.
you have it's new. It's new. It's a different time, different measures. And I honestly will say to LSU fans, let's be patient. Yes, he has a good coaching resume, but let's not jump the gun because he's familiar face. Sometimes a familiar face isn't always the brightest hope. It's kind of like with Doug Williams when Grambling brought him back, dude. He wasn't, very successful in his time coming back, and Grambling had to let him go. So that's what I'm saying here. Sometimes a familiar face doesn't mean anything because a familiar face can be a bad experience or it can be a good experience. It's just a matter of how it goes.
Yeah, and great this what's called response to that topic because Will Wade has been getting he has been getting backlash and it's become with mixed opinions from LSU fans. So it's great that Michael can break it down. But the last topic that I just do want to talk about is MLB. It is to wrap up opening weekend, and we did see a bunch. To start, one thing I do want to say is I did have it pulled up. Let me see. I had it pulled up. Well, actually, yeah, I had it pulled up. So yeah, I want to give these shout out. Shout out to the start of the season. Shout out to the Marlins. Shout out to the Brewers. Shout out to the Dodgers. And then also, I'm not saying shout out to the Yankees, but also shout out to the Rangers because what they have been doing to start off the season has actually, started to impress me. The Rangers, they looked last year they kind of looked sluggish at the beginning of the season, and this season they came out. They've been hitting predominantly well. They've been pitching well, just picking up the pieces where they started last season. Last season they had many little streaks in the season, but unfortunately they didn't make the playoffs. And then the Marlins, this is probably one of their best starts in recent years, as I've read. I'm still new to this, but this is one of the Marlins' best starts. I was going to give a shout out to the Blue Jays. They did impress me for the first series against the Athletics. And let me say this, against the Rockies, they kind of had, they bounced back yesterday, and then today they had to go to extra innings, and unfortunately they couldn't get that win. But one thing I will say about the Blue Jays, their pitching all around looks incredible. It looks incredible, and new additions that the Blue Jays, added from the departures last year, is actually kind of making me smile because it looks like we didn't lose too much, and I was kind of worried that we were going to lose a lot. But what's call it? Just losing Bo Bichette, look, I was kind of mad about it at the beginning of the off season, but I'm not trying to shame on the dude from how he's doing in New York, but if he always wanted to come back, we're taking him back with open arms. But right now, it just doesn't seem like with our replacements. It seems like they're carrying the weight a little bit better, if you can see what I'm saying. But Adam, I'm passing it off to you, and unfortunately, I don't have the top 10 yet. I do not have my top 10 yet, but I will have it soon to post up on the page.
I guess I'll give a little Mariners rundown. So started with playing the Guardians first series of the year. Ended up going 2-2. They looked really, really impressive in one of the games. I guess in both of their wins, they looked very impressive. But the Guardians were a very hot team to end the year last year. Jose Ramirez always one of the best players in baseball. So I don't really take anything from that other than the Guardians are a really good team. So you go into the Yankees series, you're able to win first game. Cal Raleigh kind of broke out of his slump just a little bit. Was able to get the walk-off hit. So the Mariners won the first game of the series, and then it has been pretty tough sledding since then. Got destroyed yesterday, and then today we're down, I think 4-0, and then ended up making a game out of it, but lost in the end. I think it was 5-3. But I mean, to me, it's the first week of the season. Mariners they're gonna bounce into shape. I got no worries with them whatsoever. JP Crawford still hasn't played yet as well. Yeah, and to talk about it just a little bit. Actually, I want to talk about Cole Young as well. Cole Young, looking great so far this year. Looking like the Mariners' second base of the future. And Brendan Donovan, probably one of the bigger trades in the offseason. Certainly not the biggest as far as like star-studded players. But he was an all-star last year, and he's come right in. We can use him anywhere, but this year he's probably going to be an everyday third baseman, barring injuries. So, and he's come in and he's looked amazing. He's already at 2 home runs, doing all those little things. He just always puts the bat on the baseball. So shout out to Brendan Donovan, how well he's been doing so far. But the big breaking news the last couple of days was Colt Emerson, who still has not played a major league game, signing an 8-year, $95 million contract, which goes down as the biggest contract in MLB history for a player that's never played an MLB game. So to me, that just shows how much the Mariners trust him already. Julio Rodriguez got an even bigger contract, but at least he had already played and was doing really good his rookie year. Just to get into some details, one comp in particular, let's see. Greg Amsinger on Colt Emerson said, folks in Seattle have told me they think he's an infield version of Corbin Carroll. So if he even becomes like 80% of as good of a player as Corbin Carroll, I think Mariners are going to be laughing all the way to many, many division championships and maybe some World Series, because you put Colt Emerson as your shortstop of the future. JP is going to be around for a few more years for sure. Love JP, but Colt Emerson as the future shortstop, and then you got Cole Young at second base, Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, and then you've got all the recent signings with Brendan Donovan. So I mean, it's turning into a special team. And also shout out to Emerson Hancock. I almost forgot about him. He had 6 innings, no hit ball the other day. As a guy that wasn't necessarily going to be in the rotation, started the season as the 5th guy in the rotation. He just is showing how much better he's gotten. Really electric, throwing fastballs to the upper part of the zone and really, really precise stuff as well. So 3-4 so far for the Mariners, but I got lots of hope. Unfortunately, the Astros started really slow and now they look really hot. So I mean, I think it's going to be another big fight in the division. I don't think it's going to be quite the dogfight of the AL East, but AL West, I don't think the Astros or the Rangers are going to lay down whatsoever.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say this. The one thing is, for baseball people, and I'm so new to this, I don't relatively get too worried at the start of the season because teams are still warming up from spring training and stuff. I really get into the groove of doing lineups, and also shout out to Cole Emerson because like you said, Adam, the Mariners do have to have a lot of trust. This is a kid coming. I'm not even saying a kid. This is a young adult coming straight out of high school, and and to get an extension like that, that means you a huge extension like that. You got to be putting all your trust in on a young player, and if he does what he's projected to do, he could live up to be a great prospect. And that's one thing I do like about the MLB. You see a lot of great prospects in high schoolers all the time. So I just hope that it pans out well for the young kid. But the one thing I do want to say next is make sure you stay tuned to all of our next episodes coming up on Inside the Locker Room and on HBCU Central. I don't have an official date yet that the whole crew will be back together, but hopefully it's next week or the week after, and we will be talking about some more content. Right now we're kind of in a dead we're in a weird spot right now. But once the draft kind of rolls around, we'll have way more content to cover. Once the draft happens, baseball season is on but it has started. It has started up, and unfortunately, I didn't get this week's power rankings out, but I will get them out sometime tomorrow or Friday. The top 10, we do got to update them because I had the Blue Jays in the top, like I had them at 2. But after this series with the Rockies, some stuff just got to change before we post it. What shows?
Yeah, I might have Yankees at 2 now.
Yeah, I'm going that is going to have to get updated because I seen it this morning. And I was like, there's no way I can just put the Blue Jays at 2 after how they just played this last series. College basketball Final Four is headed this way. And we got our Final Four matchup this Saturday. Stay tuned to that, and also on our HBCU platform, me and Michael have a bunch of guests lined up. It's a bunch, so make sure you stay tuned. Look, I see Michael over there smiling. Look, we don't want to name the guests yet, but next week, let me just say this: it's going to be a busy week. It's going to be a busy week, but like we keep saying, it's to help promote the HBCUs and help our content on Inside the Locker Room, and also on Inside the Locker Room. Start staying tuned because we will be having more highlights and stuff being posted on there. I know I asked Adam and Ben to do that. So more highlights and stuff will be posted on there. So it won't just be just interviews and podcast talks. Trying to differentiate the account a little bit more, have updates and stuff a little bit like that. But make sure you're showing love to all of our accounts. Help Inside the Locker Room's main page get to 1,000. I believe Adam has been watching the Instagram page, helping that over there. And then on our Instagram for HBCU Central, Michael, I believe we just hit 260 followers. So thank y'all to that over there. And we're actually getting coaches and players asking to be on the show now. That means a lot. So it means that
That's awesome.
It means that the message and what we're doing is working. So just stay tuned. We have a lot planned. But like I keep saying, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share. Make sure you share the support for Inside the Locker Room. And do any of y'all have any closing remarks?
No, great show. Appreciate y'all.
First and foremost, just I will say this, dudes. I can't say who it's gonna be, but I can give you the start date on when all this HBCU content is about to skyrocket. For our viewers that are watching, y'all be ready by the start of April 6th. Those next 2 weeks between the 6th all the way to the 17th, it's gonna be some busy days. It's gonna be some busy weeks. The only day off, Deuce, that we're gonna have is those 2 weeks of Wednesdays. Those 2 weeks of Wednesdays is gonna be the only thing. It's only gonna be the day off we're gonna have. Now we got the weekends. We got the weekends of those 2 weeks. But
we're just leaving those open just in case. Just leaving them open.
Yeah, just leaving those open because even though we do what we do so well, we do deserve a break. We do deserve a break. I will say that. But yeah, I will say the HBCU situation has gotten to a very high level as far as just a growing page. Like I said, Adam. We just started this in January, and we're already at 260, close to 300. And I'm not a huge person on followers, but the fact that it's only been a very few months since we've done this, and we're already past 250 is, I think, it's just a huge step on the progress and work that we put in.
The amount of support is, you should have seen it in our last clip with Elijah Wilson. The amount of support just in the comments, just a lot of support for him, and then the actual clip. So it goes to show what the message that we are doing. It's spreading rapidly, and so it's helping. What if you haven't been noticing? These followers have been coming over and following our Inside the Locker Room page. So that is the main goal, and that's what the vision.
The vision, exactly. And we've also been getting subscribers left and right. I've actually been paying attention to that. We've been growing in that. I'm just happy that that what we're doing, God is pleased. I'm glad that He's pleased what we're doing just by the support and the love in the HBCU community from the players, and now coaches are starting to come into the mix and want to come on our show. Like I said, we're not the most professional and probably the most big industry as far as HBCUs, but people are seeing what the work that we're putting in, and they're actually liking the work that we are doing for HBCUs and just on our YouTube channel in general. So I'm very proud of the work that we put in. I'm also very proud of what Inside the Locker Room has been able to do, especially with today's episode. And like I said, it's a great episode. I'm very proud of what we just did today. Um, I look forward to doing many other things besides sports because I don't want to be just a sports show guy. I want to be a community guy. I want to reach out to communities, mental health people, all this in particular, doctors, because of the fact because there there's bigger life than sports. And a lot of sports industries and a lot of sportscasters, they've kind of killed sports talk because of the fact money has kind of poisoned the sports industry's mind into thinking that sports is just the reality of the world. But there are actually some sportscasters who talk about other things than sports. So for the guys that do that, and for the women that do that, shout out to you. But honestly, I will say thank you for the support, not just on Inside the Locker Room YouTube channel, but HBCUs, HBCU Central Network. I'm really excited on the future that we have. And on behalf of that, thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode. Wish grace and peace be upon you guys. And until next time, take care of yourselves, pray for one another, encourage one another, and also encourage yourself. And that's really all I can say about that. But like I said, grace and peace be upon y'all. This is Michael from Inside the Locker Room.
See y'all later. This is Deuce from Inside the Locker Room. They hope that y'all enjoyed this extra long show. This is probably one of our longest shows, but prepare to see a lot of content on Instagram from this. So make sure you support, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And thank you for